So today we're looking at ports. First, we live in Portland, right? Or most of us kind of live in the Portland area. Why do they call it Portland? Do you know? Well, they probably call it Portland because there's a port here. So ships come in, ships go out. Same thing is true inside the computer. Okay, input and output. If you look at the system box, that's basically the box underneath your monitor. There's the stuff inside the box and the stuff outside the box. The stuff inside the box is the internal components, and the outside are called peripherals. Now, peripheral means it's connected to the system box through a cable or maybe a wireless connection, but it's peripheral to the actual system box. So in order for your system box to talk to things outside, you need to be able to access things using ports. Basically, they're pathways for communication, and they can go in either direction, some of them. Now in my slides, when you see a word that's italicized and bold, that means that's a term that you need to know the definition of, because you're going to see that on an upcoming test. Okay, so what's the definition? Well, it's a place on the computer's exterior that allows the user to connect other electronic devices. So we're looking at our box. We have ports on the front, we have ports on the back. What we're going to try to identify is which ports are they, what are they for, what are they called. Those are the three things we're trying to deduce. Now there's three kinds of ports when it comes to direction of data. Some ports are for input, like the microphone port or the mouse. If you have a USB mouse or an old style mouse, that's just for input. You don't ever send anything to your mouse to be output, right? It's not a screen, it's not a speaker. It doesn't receive information. All it does is provide information. It sends stuff out of the mouse into the computer. Some ports are just for output, like the video port on the back of your computer. Some ports are for both input and output. It used to be you'd send stuff to a printer, and the printer would print it unless it got a paper jam, and it would continue trying to print through this paper jam. And there was no way for the printer to tell the computer, hey, the printer's all jammed. You need to stop sending me stuff. You're going to break the printer. Printers couldn't actually talk back because the output port for printers was unidirectional. It only went out. But now your printers can tell you lots of things. Say you send something out and it's out of ink. It says back, hey, I don't have any ink. Or you send a document to the printer and it sends back, hey, there's no paper in here. Or there's a paper jam. So that USB port then can be used both for input and output. So there's old school and then there's USB. And even on these new machines that we have on our desk, there's a few old school ports on them. We used to have a different connector for each type of external component, each peripheral. And you can see that in the back of the computers. If you're on the first three rows, why don't you turn around and look at the back of the row behind you's computer. You'll see there's a few ports there that are a little bit out of date, but they're still on these new machines. First one, there's two circular ones. There's ones that's green and another one's that's purple. Okay, that's the old school mouse and keyboard ports. Why did they include them on these computers? There are some people that like their mice and their keyboards, and they've grown quite attached to them, and so they put the ports there just to be backward compatible. There is adapters for that, but they still put it there. There's also a serial port, hardly ever used, and the other ports that are old school. I think that's it. The serial ports are a D-shaped connector. They're male, and they send information one bit at a time. Now, ports have a gender. Now, this isn't health class, so if I have to define why ports have a gender, I'm not going to get into that because I get really embarrassed. My wife's a health teacher, so I let her do that part. Suffice it to say, ports are either male or female, generally. But today, most of the old ports in the computer have been replaced. What have they been replaced by? The answer is USB. You have a flash drive, you stick it in a USB port. You have a mouse, stick it in a USB port. You have a printer, USB port. So all the different ports that used to be there have been replaced, most of them, by USB ports. So what does USB stand for? Universal? That's a little bit presumptuous. Maybe just on Earth, but in the entire universe? I don't know. That seems a little bit broad. So you can plug any device that supports USB. Next is serial. Notice how serial is spelled. I need to know what serial means. Serial killer sounds awful, but what does that mean? The guy goes out and kills boxes of cereal. Serial means a series, or like if you're watching if you're binge watching House or something, that's a series, right? So one episode after the other. So serial means one thing after the other, things in a series. They start with the first one, go on to the second one. In computer land, serial means sending information one bit at a time, which seems to me would be really slow. But the switching technologies are so fast nowadays that you can send billions of bits in just a second, which is amazing to me. Finally, the last term is a bus. Everybody ride the bus today? Come to school? Some of us rode the bus. What does the bus do? So it picks you up at your house, it transports you to school and then back again. Well, a bus inside the computer is the same way. It sends it carries information out, and it'll perhaps carry information in. So it's transporting the bits from the outside to the inside, or the inside to the outside. So yeah, a bus is the data pathway to or from the system box. So universal serial bus. Now you know what USB stands for. Well, a lot of the new stuff is like the mouse and keyboard use the USB port. It's what kind of keyboard and mice do we have on our desk? Yeah, those are USB plugged in the back. If you look in the back, they're plugged into USB ports. Front ports are typically for flash drives, or mainly flash drives. I'm trying to think what else you'd plug in the front. Any ideas? What do you normally plug in the front of your computer? Just flash drives? Sometimes your mouse and keyboard, but usually it's just flash drives. I have an inkjet printer at home. It's actually a combo machine. It can do copies, it could send faxes, it can print. So you can plug your printer in there. Your flash drives, there's like 12 different names for that thing. Is it a flash drive? Is it a thumb drive? Is it a flash ROM drive? If you have a game controller, say you're playing PC game but you want to use a controller like the Xbox One controller, you can go out and buy those. You can play games using a game controller rather than the keyboard. If you've ever been down to Fry's, they have some pretty cool stuff down there. They have these mice that have like 27 buttons on them. You can use that to play World of Warcraft and lose half your life. That's the voice of experience, just letting you know. And the keyboards are cool. You have these extra keyboards or throttles if you're playing planes and stuff. Yeah, so there's lots of cool stuff you can get, not just keyboards and mice. Now I show you this because I want you to be able to differentiate between a parallel connection and a serial connection. In a parallel connection, you can send up to 16 bits at a time. And this is how some of the old school hard drives and CD-ROM drives inside your computer would work. You'd have these ribbons of cables connected to each of the components, and they would send groups of bits chunked up based on the width of the cable. So one of the wires is the strobe. You ever heard of a strobe light? What's that mean? What does a strobe light do? It's great at Halloween. You know, you're in a haunted house and the strobe light's on and there's this monster and you're catching every second step towards you with a big knife. It's pretty scary with the strobe light. Well, this strobe line, when it's ready for the other end to read the bits that are set, it sends out a strobe pulse, basically a high voltage, and the computer at the other end knows to read the rest of the wires because they're set either to 0, having no voltage or a low voltage, to 1, having a high voltage, relatively. And so the strobe is used to synchronize both the transmitter and the receiver. But this is kind of clunky. And in today's day and age, almost all the parallel connections have been replaced with serial connection. Even the ribbon cables you see in older computers have been replaced with serial ATA. Where does the term serial come from? Well, it's sending bits one at a time, not 16 bits. You figured this would be faster because you're sending 16 bits at a time, but the switching technology is so incredible that it's actually slower. That's been pretty much replaced. Serial transmitters send information 1 bit at a time instead of 16. So why would we want to use this? Well, parallel connections are limited to only about 10 feet. And then there's too much resistance in the wires and they're finally just chunks. With the serial connection, you can go much further. In fact, if you look at the network cable that's plugged into your computer on the back, it goes from your computer into that programmable switch, which goes into the floor, which goes into the frame closet, which goes into the main transmission closet, the bottom of the ramp, to a fiber optic cable that sends it to the district office, and then finally out to the internet. That's a long ways. And that's all done with a serial connection. We're talking 20 miles or so. The wiring scheme for a serial connection is really simple. You just wire the transmit line on the PC to the receive line of the printer, and the printer sends its transmit line back to the receive line on the PC. The only need for a bidirectional serial connection is 2 wires. That's all. If you look at network cables, they have 8 little tiny wires in it. You look at the end and there's wires, but it only uses 2 of them. All the rest are wasted. Now I did all the wiring in my house, and so I had to put the computer and the phone on the same wire. So I was able to fool it so I could run up to 3 different computers and the phone all with 1 connector into the wall. Because 3 of the computers could use 3 sets of wires, 3 pairs of wires, and then the last pair I could use for my phone. So just because you have just a single connection doesn't mean you can't connect more than 1 computer. You have to do some creative wiring, but you can do it if you're in a pinch. Stringing wires through walls is a real pain, so if you can avoid that, it's always worthwhile. And we're going to be making network connectors here in this class, so we'll get some hands-on experience doing that. There's simplex, one-way communications, like you're listening to KGON and sing along to the radio. Can you talk to the radio and have the radio station hear what you say? And the answer is no. This is simply in one direction. You turn on the radio, you listen to the radio. That's pretty much it. You can talk to your radio, but people will stare at you when you're in traffic. So that's called a simplex connection. Next is half duplex. Call this walkie-talkie mode. I actually was using one yesterday. When I send my son out and he's looking for something to play, I give him a walkie-talkie and he can tell me where he's at. It's kind of fun too. But you can't talk at the same time. You know, you ever see a walkie-talkie say, there's Smokies at Malfunction Junction, over. And then it says, yeah, I see him, they're coming around the bend, over. Why are they saying over at the end? Yeah, it tells the other person on the other side of the line, hey, I'm done talking, you can talk now. This is both transmitting and receiving, but you just can't do both of them at the same time. Or if you're both talking at the same time, neither one will hear you, right? So you have to take turns. Full duplex is like a telephone. You can listen and you can talk at the same time because you have a microphone and a speaker in your headset. High school students, are they half duplex or full duplex? I suggest high school students are half duplex. They can't talk and listen at the same time. That's why teachers are always saying, hey, can you stop talking? I need you to listen. So students are half duplex, unless you ask a high school students, and they will insist that they're full duplex. I tend to disagree. Now there's a special type of cable you can build called a direct connect cable. And this is kind of cool when you're just transferring information from one computer to the other and you don't have a switch or a hub and you don't want to go through the router. You just want to go directly from one computer to the other. you can do that. And if you want to build one, we have the materials to do that. If you ever have a need for transferring large amounts of data, say you're trying to transfer data from one hard drive to another on another machine, you can make one of these cables and make it a lot simpler, and it's really fast. How does it do this? Well, it hardwires the transmit and receive lines to each other and then allows you to talk directly. Now, old style video ports are called VGA ports. I can't remember what VGA stands for. G is graphics and A is adapter, but video graphics adapter would be my guess, but I'm guessing. I suppose we could look it up. What's the D-shaped connector? What does D-shaped mean? Well, it's shaped like the letter D, I would imagine. So if you could stand up and go around your computer and look at the back of it, you'll see a D-shaped blue VGA port on your computer. So guys in the back row, you'd have to go around the back and look at it. But just take a quick peek if you're in the back row. If you're in the first few rows, you can just turn around. But yeah, so video graphics array or adapter, one of the two. See how it's shaped like the letter D? Why is it shaped like the letter D? Anyone know? Right. If it's shaped like the letter D, you can't plug it in upside down. Don't you hate that? You got your USB port, you plug it in, it won't go in. You flip it over, and there's no consistent way. Some of them, they're this way, and the other way, they're that way, and it's really annoying. Well, VGA ports are that way too. You're reaching around the back of the computer trying to find that stupid D-shaped thing. You find something D-shaped and try to plug it into it, and you realize later that it's a serial port rather than a video port. It's a 15-pin port female. So 15 pins. Well, remember, if you looked at the connector, it doesn't have any pins. It has holes instead. Well, people just always call them pins. Pins are on the part that comes from the display. Now, this is a female port. And again, I'll let you figure that out on your own. But now there's another port that's the same size, except it only has 9 pins and it's male. It's D-shaped, and that's the serial port. Now if you turn around again and look at the computer, you check to see if there's a serial port on the back of the computer. And you're saying, oh my gosh, there is one of these old school serial ports on the back of the computer. So why would you need one of these things? I mean, this is ancient technology. Why is it still there? Yeah, if you have an old school modem, like a dial-up modem, that's where you would plug it in. So some people live out in the sticks and they don't have high-speed stuff or even DSL, but they have dial-up. All the dial-up modems have a serial port on it. That's how they talk, at least the old ones. All right, so newer video ports. These are called DVI, or Digital Video Interface ports. And these are the ports we're actually using. DVI, Digital Video Interface. These are really kind of interesting ports. You can't really see them on the back of ours because we have something plugged into it. But it is D-shaped, elongated D, I guess. And it's a lot higher fidelity, and you'd use them for high-resolution flat panel displays. Now, what other type of port do you see on like flat panel televisions or flat panel displays? HDMI, yeah, that's another one. What's different between HDMI and DVI apart from the shape of it? Yeah, that's very good. Yeah, HDMI also carries an audio signal. So if your screen, like a television, has speakers on it, you can see the screen. You can see the screen, but you can also hear the sound. Now I have a 440 watt bass amplifier that I use when I play string bass. I've hitched it up to my home stereo system, and I watch Avengers, and when things explode, my whole house shakes because I have a 440 watt amplifier. I like it. I was playing in the musical once here at school. It was Shrek, I guess, and I wanted to see how much power I had, so I turned it almost all the way up until all you could hear was the bass, nothing else. And Mr. Zander came over and he said, "Could you turn it down a bit?" He was very polite. I just wanted to see how loud I could get. So I like being the lowest instrument in the room and also the loudest. Low notes don't hurt your ears, which is good. Yeah, so DVI is supported by new standards and new flat panel monitors. These ones on our desk are a little bit on the small side for flat panels. Yeah, for my computer at home, I have a 21-inch monitor. PS2 ports. What, there's PlayStation 2 ports on the back of our computers? The answer is no. It's not PlayStation 2, it's Personal System 2, coming from IBM. Those are those circular mouse and keyboard connectors on the back. They're color-coded, so you don't plug them in backwards, and people always do. But they were circular. And so, again, this is mainly used for the mouse and the keyboard. I've never seen them used for anything else. Nowadays, everything's USB, so you're probably not going to use them at all, unless you have a keyboard you're trying to keep or a mouse that you want to use. They're different from the other ports in that they're circular. And again, these have been largely replaced by USB, just like most of the other ports. Okay, audio ports. These accept 1/8 of an inch male TSR connectors. I just had the student today come up and say, "Can you fix my headphones?" And she had a TRRS connector. I think I have my slide wrong. TRS connector. And what TRS means is tip ring sleeve. Okay? So there's a tip and it's separated electronically from the ring, which is separated electronically from the sleeve. The sleeve is usually ground, and the tip and the ring are the left and right channels. So they're really tiny. Basically, if you're using headphones, when you plug in your headphones, that's a TRS connector. So headphones, your speakers, if you have to the side of your computer, that's usually using one of these connectors. Usually one for headphones or speaker out, one for line in, and then one for microphone in. So for a bare bones system, those are the three you see. Now on this system that we have on our desks, let me just take a look. I don't know. Yeah, it only has two. Wow, that's terrible. It has got headphone or speaker out, it's got line in, and then the headphone is on the front, which makes sense. Yeah, it's microphone and then headphones on the front. So headphone and mic on the front, and then speakers and line in are on the back. So there's 4 ports on these computers. All of them are female. Okay, so this is a really important port on the music stand. See the music stand underneath the screen there? Yeah, that's where it goes. So this accepts an RJ45 8-wire connection. This is one of the most important ports on the computer. This is where you get your internet from. Would a computer be very useful without the internet nowadays? Not so much. Say your router goes down. What do you do with your computer if your router goes down? Pretty much nothing. You can't play TF2. You can't watch YouTube. You can't. It used to be there was lots of stuff to do on a computer. You could play Battle for Middle-earth, or you could play all these things. But now all the games are internet-based. You're kind of dead in the water. Now realize, too, that even though it's an 8-wire connection, only 2 of the wires are actually being used, which seems pretty wasteful. Now don't get this confused with a slightly smaller 6-wire telephone connection. Telephone connection is for the old-style telephone service. But again, all of this has been replaced. You can use network ports for phones and the other way around. You just have to wire them in the wiring closet the same. And they tend to use the same wires anyway. Now the way you connect to the network is you have an RJ45 network cable, has 8 wires. It either can be mirrored or straight through. The one you want is straight through. So pin 1 attaches to pin 1, pin 2 attaches to pin 2, or you can do rolled over and wire the transmit lines to the receive lines. Some people call that a direct connect cable. There's also two types of cables. There's Cat, well, there's three nowadays that you'd find. Cat 5, which is slow, Cat 5e, which is kind of medium, and then Cat 6, which is fast. We're going to be making Cat 6 networking cable stuff here in class. And that way you can use it at home perhaps and go really fast from your router. Now the telephone cable is called an RJ11. It's got 6 wires straight through. You only use it for telephone anymore. Not really good for much else. And the wire's not that great. It's only voice grade, it's not data grade most of the time. That's why modems, dial-up modems go so slow. It's because the poor quality going over the network, like a phone network or a voice network, I guess. Another port you're not going to see very often is the SCSI port. So it's pronounced SCSI. Typically, you only find these on servers, like the one we have in the back here. Be interesting to see if it has one. This is a really weird one. It's not D-shaped. It has really sharp corners, so it's like a trapezoid. And it has hooks on either side so it doesn't get unplugged. There's also FireWire ports. This used to be pretty popular. Say you had a camera, like a video camera, and you want to get lots of digital images from your camera down to your computer quickly, like digital video. It's called FireWire, and Macs had the ability to do this where PCs really didn't. They were kind of slow to take these up. Also, there was a copyright issue or trademark issue, so on a Apple computer it's called FireWire. On a PC it's called IEEE 1394. Yes, that's its actual name. But again, this has been replaced pretty much. What's faster than FireWire? You want to get stuff into the computer. USB 1.0? There's 2.0, there's 3.0. 3.0 is now faster than FireWire. So now everybody's got that. If you look on the computer in front of you, you have two high-speed USB ports. They're usually blue. They're a little bit different than a standard USB port, and this is when you want to move stuff fast with something that runs 3.0. So I want to show you some of these ports up front. I'm going to pause the recording.